Is Matt going to be here too? Matt be here too?
Yeah. Yeah.
I can call into the pocket, but there's nothing in my calendar for
It
it.
may not be a valid meeting anymore. I'll talk to,
Good morning. It is Tuesday, March 7th. We are here for our regular commissioner board meeting. We have all three commissioners present. We have the administrator, Mr. Davidson, and our clerk of the board. And at this time, I'll call the meeting to order and ask everyone to please rise and join in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I
I'd like to first announce that there is going to be one item pulled from the agenda. The regular business item B has been pulled, and we will have an executive session at the end of the meeting. So I will ask the other commissioners for the approval of the January 10th commissioner meeting minutes. Is there any additions, corrections, or revisions? Okay. And we are down to the approval of vouchers.
move for approval of fund expenditures in the total amount of $1,163,241.02 as presented, and note that it has been reviewed and signed by two representatives of the auditor's office and the county administrator.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Move for approval of salary clearing payroll and emergency management payroll in the total amount of $1,169,166.48 as presented, and note that it has been reviewed and signed by two representatives of the auditor's office.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Moves us down to the approval of the consent agenda. There are 5 items on the consent agenda.
Move for approval of consent agenda items 1 through 5 as presented.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second for 5 items on the consent agenda. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Takes us down to the public.
on the phone.
We have one on the phone. We'll take the, there's nobody on the phone? Okay. Anybody for public? Oh, we do.
The vitality of civil and political
Put it down by the
institutions
beep.
in our society depends on free discussion. As Chief Justice Hughes wrote in DeJong versus Oregon, it is only through free debate and free exchange of ideas that the government remains responsive to the will of the people. And I personally believe that Franklin County is a little unresponsive to its people because it doesn't allow free speech. The right to speak freely, promote diversity of ideas and programs is therefore one of the chief distinctions that set us apart from a totalitarian regime. According to the function of free speech under our system of government, it is to invite dispute. It may be, and it may indeed be, serve its best and highest purpose when it induces a condition of unrest, when it creates a dissatisfaction with conditions as they are, or even stirs people to anger. Such speech is often provocative and challenging, and it may strike at prejudice, not get hung up on, or preconceptions, and have profound, unsettling effects. While free speech is not absolute, Chaplinsky versus New Hampshire, nevertheless protected against censorship or punishment, unless shown likely to produce clear and present danger. The funny part is, there's another case called Terminillo versus the city of Chicago, and the only Supreme Court Justice, Jackson, who wrote a dissenting opinion, so believed that in so dissenting, Jackson quoted from Mein Kampf, the only to date reference to Hitler in the Supreme Court. Do you realize that if you don't believe in free speech, the only person you have to stand up and say the Constitution is backing you is somebody who believed in Hitler? So when I call you a police state and I'm reporting a crime that the sheriff has failed to take, and you hang the phone up on me because I use the F word, sir, it didn't work in the Nuremberg trials, and it shouldn't work in Franklin County. The commissioners know what's going on, and they're profiting off of it. 3 years ago, before Amazon came in, I started speaking about corruption and tried to stop the corruption in Pasco and Franklin County. Pasco is 60% of their voters, so they're kind of beholden to the city of Pasco. And when you realize that I was speaking against that, and then I was cut off, I have been hung up on, I have been treated like other people aren't treated, you can start to see the discrimination. Now, just imagine if you are a minority of Hispanic or other descent of another language, and you don't know your rights. If you don't know your right to speak against your government, you don't know that you have the right not to get punched in the face by a police officer or a Franklin County Sheriff's officer when you use your free speech. And then when I'm reporting that crime to you guys, there's still no police report of it, so the sheriff didn't take that crime down. He just ignored it. And then you guys hang the phone up on me because it's advantageous. It's better for you to discriminate against disabled people. And I'll see you in the next comment.
Thank you. Is there anybody else for public comment?
Thank you.
We have two public comment periods. You're welcome to 3 minutes on the second. So,
So I'm Dwight Matthews. We are here in Franklin County, Clark Edition area, and we're short plotting some acreage. And there's just been repeated changes throughout the requirements of what we're supposed to do to. Oh, I thought I was loud already. There's been a lot of changes for what we've been told we have to keep doing to finish our short plot. All we're trying to do is go from 5 acres to 2 separate 1 acre lots and keep the 3. And they've done many changes that have changed from the orientation of the lots, from what is required and what's not required. There's a lot of proof of that in these papers here if you take a few minutes to look at them. Emails that are very contradictory to each other. There'll be one email that's one day that says it needs to be 20 feet wide. The next day I'll get an email that says it needs to be, just do the 10 feet on your side as we discussed, which was not discussed. And I spoke many times with Robert, and Robert Mendez is his name, in Public Works in person. And I would speak in person, we would have an understanding, and then he would go back to his office and write me an email of exactly opposite. He was telling me he wasn't going to check the depth of the road. He told me in person, standing on that very road, that he wasn't checking the depth of gravel. He just wanted 20 feet wide. So I changed my grader quote from a grader and rock to just a grader. I got that road graded, and he came out that next day, sent me an email that said it's wide enough, but it's not thick enough. So it just keeps going back and forth. I feel like they're playing with my money, and they're kind of just putting out wish lists at this point and saying, hey, we'd like, that was actually his verbiage in the beginning, was I would like to see, or what we would prefer to see. It's not, hey, this is what you have to do, this is what your neighbors had to do. I just want to know, not that I'm trying to scoot by and not do what I need to do, but what is exactly what I have to do. I don't want your wish list. I feel like I'm not getting a straight answer. They keep telling me different things constantly, so I need, they're the public official. I feel like, in a way, they're, I don't know legally if it's not, but verbally that should be binding. If he stands there and tells me man to man on that road, hey, do this to this road and you're good, and then I do it, he comes back and tells me opposite the next day. I feel like that's wrong, and that's costing me money. It's $700 just to get the grader out there. Now I got to pay for the grader again and more gravel. So I'm just getting yanked around, I feel like. I'm tired of it. That's what I got to say. The pictures on the top there, that first one should say Road 44, which they're saying is private. That is the private drive I'm dealing with that they said needed graded. And if you look at the second picture, that's Road 42, which is a county road, which you can tell very quickly there's pretty darn close to no gravel on that road. So they're expecting a higher standard of the landowner than they are of county, and that upsets me. And I pay taxes for that road, so
thank you.
that bothers me very much.
Thank you. Is there anybody else for public comment? All right, seeing none. Oh, here we go. Excuse me.
Commissioners, as an FYI, tomorrow, there'll be a contingent of Franklin County residents, a Benton County official, that are going to travel to Spokane to look at a couple 23-hour recovery center models. And I'll report back to you on that when we get back, but it looks promising to be able to stand up a 23-hour recovery center. Secondly, I was at the CJTC, Criminal Justice Training Commission, doing hearings last week when I got an email from the prosecuting attorney with a legal review. And when I was looking at it, I'm going, well, I didn't ask for this. Where'd this come from? So as a segue, as you know, I've been brought into several executive board meetings in front of this body, accused of harassing and intimidating people, et cetera, et cetera. So to stop all that, I went into an executive meeting last week, on the night time, to tell you that I was going to do my own human resource work as the sheriff's office, which was in my right to do, and that I would refrain from contacting human resources, et cetera, et cetera. One of the commissioners, when I was done, was upset that I was putting people in a litigious situation, that the county was going to be in a litigious situation. And as I walked out the door, I don't want to use the word threatening, but was told, well, I'm thinking about taking the jail away from you, Sheriff. And I said, okay, you know, do what you got to do. But somewhere along the line, somebody ordered that a legal review take place, reference to if I can hire and do all those things and run my own human resources. And I'm concerned that you didn't get that because it's addressed to me, but my understanding is someone in this body asked for a legal review. So I want to make sure you have copies of that and have an understanding of that. Thank you.
Is there anybody else for public comment? All right, seeing none, we'll move down to regular business. Item A is the hiring of a public defender attorney resolution.
I don't think we need to spend a whole lot of time on this one. As you can see from the ASR, it's budget neutral. The money's already in the budget. We're just changing the status. This is actually the first employee. This will be the first non-contractor we've signed on since I've been here. Knock on wood, I might have a second one, maybe in the next 60 to 90 days. And at that point in time, if we're going to hire them, I'll have to ask you for more money to cover that. But for right now, we've got the money. It's just a change of status. That's all this is.
Questions, commissioners?
Just an observation, OPD expenses are must-pays. We don't have a choice, and I appreciate the fact that you are looking for creative ways to provide enough legal counsel to meet our obligations. We've had conversations in the past about employees versus contract. The contract cost tends to fluctuate with the market. The employee costs tend to just do this over time. Either way, we've got a duty to provide these services, and I appreciate the creative approach. Thanks.
Anything else?
Is this someone new to your office?
Yes. We hired him away from prosecutors over in Benton County.
Okay. So he's not,
Some enchanted evening? Whatever. No, and we can make savings. We can still make some savings somewhere, sometime, somehow. I had another meeting with Olympia a couple of weeks ago, and There's all kinds of issues on the table right now, but I don't want to go into that today. This is budget neutral, so this isn't going to hurt.
All right, thank you.
And if you might elaborate, you've hired him under contract, but now he's going to be an employee.
He's an employee now.
Yes. This
And
would
what we're paying
make
him,
an
including the
employee.
benefits, is comparable to what we would be outlaying if he was a contractor,
Yes.
which is outlined in the ASR.
Just for what it's worth, I spend a lot of time in Olympia these days, and my go-to example for unfunded mandates where the state has put obligations on the county and not funded them is OPD. It's got a whole lot of issues associated with fair and equal representation, whether or not we're willing to fund the kind of representation that we're obligated to provide. And as you know, even in extraordinary years where we have very high, maybe we have extra felony cases, the state still only comes through with a fraction of the funding. And that's got to change, and hopefully legislation will do that. But so far, it's not gotten much, what's the kind word? Legislature doesn't appear to be listening.
Well, they don't have the money either when you look at it. In other words, it's politically unpalatable for them to stop stripping other budgets to throw it all into the defense of criminals. That's just not going to sell back home come re-election time. And that's perfectly understandable.
Yeah.
But when I talk to Olympia, OPD and Olympia would take over the whole state right now if they could. Nothing would please them more. They are basically a bureaucracy that's on the rise. Right now, they're just building their nest. You know, every time I talk with them or I look at their webpage, they got a new lawyer, and they don't seem to have any problem at all finding the money for that. But I quite frankly got into it with them again, as I usually do, about the lack of support, not just financially, you know, but they're just a self-interested bureaucracy. They haven't gotten to anywhere close to where they can even look you in the eye and say, oh yeah, we're there for you. That's not so. And that's fine. In a lot of ways, I'd rather have them outside the tent. But that's all going to change too, the way we're going.
So one more question.
Oh,
Yep.
yes?
Yeah. Did we have to outbid Benton County for this employee?
No, not really.
He-
We had,
We didn't have to offer him more money?
well, we had to tweak it a little bit, but it's still within the budget.
And this is where I'm going with it, is that OPD used to be combined, and we worked together, and now we're in competition for these lawyers, and this.
And I just sent you all a memo on that and gave you the district court numbers and the superior court numbers. And the first thing I think you ought to do with Benton County is say, look, these are our respective contracts right now. Why don't we just make these all equal across the board, and then we'll stop this Blue Bridge nonsense.
You're doing some fine work, Mr. Ziegler, I just want to tell you that.
That's questionable.
I'm glad you said it, not me.
I'm not here to toot my horn.
Thank you.
Anything else? Good. Thank
With
you.
that, I'd entertain a motion.
Move for approval of Resolution 2023-074 as presented.
Second.
Got a motion and a second for Resolution 2023-074. No further discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Moves us down to Commissioner Administrator updates. Mr. Davidson.
Mr. Chairman, report the Wilson House sale is progressing. The appraisal came in at over the sale price of $400,000, so that's good news. Booker Auction is now telling us that we can continue to expect a final closing to be around the 15th of this month. Shirley Jones, the office, is bringing together parties from accounting, procurement, prosecutor's office regarding the ARPA funds contract that will be used. The use of federal funds processing requires lots of documentation, and so we went to some best practice counties to look at the examples, Thurston County and Snohomish County being two of the main ones that we are kind of gleaning from to develop our own contracts, and so she's working hard on that. The HAPO Advisory Board, we advertised we have a vacancy for a position. The the person is supposed to, this position is supposed to be representing the North County, so around the Clotis and Connell area. We advertised for it in the graphic, and we finally did get one application. It still is open till the 15th, so I encourage anybody that might be interested in that position to apply. But at this point in time, we do have, it appears, one qualified applicant, which is good news because I think that they have their, that's a HAPO advisory board is one we do with the city of Pasco. And I think that they're scheduling a late April or something like that. They're going to start commencing those meetings again. At a P-card meeting, dealing with the P-card issue and the late payments that we incurred with the bank, had a meeting with the Treasurer's and Auditor's Office staff, and we're making great progress on that. I think that the solution of paying out basically a clearing account is going to help us alleviate the problem about ever having late payments and actually put us in a position to where we might actually, maybe someday actually get a rebate from the bank and make it, instead of a penalty kind of a situation, it could even generate us a little bit of revenue. The travel policy has been revised mainly because of the donation we had from the 5 cars from the sheriff's office that were being surplus, and we had to revise the policy somewhat to account for that. We send that policy, now that's been revised, up to the prosecutor's office for review. I had a meeting with our prosecutor about that, about those revisions, and I think that that policy will be in front of you in just the next couple of weeks for debate and hopeful for approval. Just a reminder, elected official department manager meeting is today at noon. And I did get this notification from the city of Pasco about the Broadmoor groundbreaking. That's on the March 9th at 3 p.m. So there's an invite to attend that. And Mr. Chairman, that's all I have for right now.
So on the department head meeting, is that the meeting where no commissioners attend, or is a commissioner supposed to be attending?
No, we welcome just as long as we
Commissioner
don't
for
have a
this?
quorum, so a commissioner.
So I attended the last one, Commissioner Mullen.
I think Commissioner Mullen attended the one before that, correct?
Did not, but I am unavailable today.
Okay,
Commissioner Peck?
I can certainly attend.
Okay, all righty, just want to make sure that we have that out of the way. So Commissioner Peck, updates?
Legislative Steering Committee meeting again this week in Olympia. I chose to do this one by Zoom this week, given the past conditions and the fact that I'm a little tired of driving back and forth for 36-hour meetings. But also had the Washington State Aviation Committee, which is a state legislator-appointed committee to advise the legislature on promoting the aerospace and aviation industry in the state of Washington. This week's meeting was actually the infrastructure subcommittee of that body, and we spoke specifically about or discussed how to make infrastructure improvements in local airports like our own Tri-Cities Airport. Without getting into too much detail, one of the key limiting factors for the general aviation industry in Washington appears to be a shortage of either a county or privately owned hangars for people to store aircraft, and they're discovering that actually is dissuading people from participating. So some solution and possibly some money for our local airports to make those infrastructure improvements. I want to just piggyback for a moment, if I could, on Mr. Davidson's comments and just acknowledge that Shirley Jones, who is in the position that we originally envisioned as an assistant county administrator, but nonetheless is a key part of the team, I think has been doing a terrific job with McKinstry and with HAPO Center and with Wilson House and just a number of these various projects that really kind of are behind the scenes, and there's not, there's a lot of discussion of them, but there's not a lot of recognition of the fact that she's on the ground making these things happen, and I just wanted to offer her some appreciation and acknowledgement that she's doing a nice job with that. Lastly, is that we had the meeting up in Connell where we talked about emergency management services, ambulance, fire, et cetera. Had conversations with a couple of community members about that and about what the effective taxation would be and how that might shift if we were to pursue that and how we might pursue it in a way that is fair and balanced for all the citizens of the county. Thanks.
Commissioner Mullen?
Pretty light week. I had the Washington Federation Highway Users meeting, and then just met with some constituents about road conditions, and that's about it for this last week.
And a light week for me also, Veterans Board meeting, and then meeting with constituents on roads also. And I will say that Dwight gave me a call, and I met with him on the road down there and listened to his concerns. And I think that's our obligation as commissioners, to listen to our constituents and see their concerns, hear their concerns, and encourage them to come to board meetings. And I want to thank him for coming in and presenting today. That's public comment. So with that, we'll move down to elected and department head business. Anybody from elected and department heads that would like to come and forward and speak on any topic, concern of theirs? Ms. Hughes.
Just very quickly, I expect the MOAs to be available for next week with the sheriff's unions.
Thank you. Anybody else? So I'd like to just reemphasize that the elected and department head business allows us to interact with the presenter, and public comment is only for listening. So if any department heads want to interact, now is the time. So I see no more coming forward. We'll move down to administration office business. Mr. Johnson. Nothing?
Johnson?
Oh, did I do that again? Mr. Davidson. Well, you got that poster down there that says Dwayne Johnson, and you're posing. Anyway, I apologize. Moves us down to public comment. Anybody else for public comment?
Nobody on the phone?
Nobody on the phone?
Yep.
Absolutely. You got 3 more minutes,
No, I'm not real great at that.
and we only can listen.
Okay, sounds good. So, in the papers I gave you, there's, my surveyor sent me papers from the 70s, 73 or 72. That said that road is here on and forever public use. It's in like a zoomed in picture sideways. So the surveyor sent me that because I had asked for paperwork to get signatures from my neighbors to get permission to put the road, to grade and gravel the road and have permission for that easement. And he sent me that and said, I don't have any paperwork for you because it says it's already a public easement. So either it's a public easement and the county's not keeping up on it, or it's private and it's none of their business. Is kind of where I'm at on it. Also, you'll see in those emails that they went from, there's 3 changes that you're looking at in the papers you have here, not even counting the first thing that we did when we started this process. I'm just looking for my public officials to be accurate with me because I expect that from them, and expect either the same or better from themselves, which just, again, irritates me pretty good. I also have the grading quotes in here to show both quotes when I took the rock off, and the email to that company that said, county told me I didn't need rock, so I took the rock off. So grading only, edited quote for grading only. Just trying to build a house for the family, sell a couple acres, not trying to do anything special, not trying to make a bunch of money.
Thank you. Anybody else for public comment? All right, with that, we'll move into executive session, and Mr. Davidson, you please take us into executive session.
Mr. Chairman, a request an executive session pursuant to RCW 423110, Section 1, subsection G, to evaluate qualifications for applicant for employment. Estimated time, 15 minutes.
Okay.
Who do you need present for that?
You.
And our HR director, correct?
Yes.
We've come out of executive session. We've come out of executive session. We need the door open. We've come out of executive session. We're going to return to executive session under the same RCW for 15 more minutes.
list of places to stop.
We're out of executive session. We're back to regular session. And we are at the point in this meeting where, is there any other business for the good of the county?
I'll make the motion that we offer the job of county administrator to Mike Gonzalez.
And I'll second that motion. Discussion.
Under Robert's rules, the maker of the motion has the right to speak first, so I would ask Commissioner Mullen if he would care to speak first before I offer my comments.
I believe that Mike Gonzalez has shown to be a leader in the community. He is someone that has a special set of skills that I think that Franklin County can use to solve a lot of the issues with that have came up in the past with Franklin County. I just believe with Dwayne Davidson guiding him, the two would make a perfect team. Best case scenario would be if Dwayne Davidson would just simply stay, but I do understand his situation and also appreciate the fact that he is willing to stay on part-time and work with Mr. Gonzalez. And I just believe the two are a winning pair that will set Franklin County up to be a much better situation 5 years from now.
Okay? Mr. Chair, if I might, I'll add my thoughts.
Commissioner Peck.
I took the time to write these down in some detail and some notes, and I'll do this as expeditiously as I can. Historically, Pasco and Franklin County have hired professional independent search firms to locate, screen, and evaluate the most highly qualified candidates for key leadership positions like the county administrator. These firms have decades of experience placing executives throughout Washington and the Northwest. Among the many services they provide, they screen out candidates whose credentials and experience do not meet the organization's stated minimum qualifications for consideration. Only the best qualified applicants are forwarded for consideration. I have strongly urged my fellow commissioners to engage one of these independent search firms. They have declined my recommendations and chose to advertise a position using online job sites. The advertising drew a grand total of 9 applicants nationwide. Of the 9, we had one exceptionally well-qualified candidate who exceeded all the job requirements for the position, and 8 who I do not believe met even the minimum requirements of 5 years of city or county executive experience. Mr. Gonzalez is one of those 8 who did not meet the minimum stated requirements established by this board. His application and our interviews indicated no executive level experience in city or county government, not one day. To be fair, Mr. Gonzalez is an affable gentleman who has many friends in the community and communicates well. I personally count him as a friend. If his professional work experience came anywhere close to meeting the minimum requirements we advertised, I would probably support his hire. They simply do not. Hiring a candidate who fails to meet the minimum requirements we set forth for this important position disrespects the agreement this board made about the qualifications of our next administrator. It disadvantages members of our community who took us at our word and did not apply for this position because they did not meet the minimum requirements that we set, agreed upon, and advertised. With your self-adopted criteria, there are many, many candidates in this community who would be qualified and should have been given equal opportunity to apply. If the criteria for this position has in fact changed, the job must be re-advertised to give everyone equal opportunity to apply. It's not only fair and equitable and ethical, it's in the best interest of the county. If you are not willing to re-advertise this position, then we need to hire the exceptionally well-qualified applicant, Mr. Rick Rudemetkin. He has been a deputy city manager, a county public works director, a deputy county administrator, and nearly 7 years as a county administrator. He has managed budgets that are 4 times larger than Franklin County, and in interviews showed himself to be an accomplished executive driven by principle, orderly, efficient government, and respect for people. He has a clear grasp of the obligation to serve all citizens without politicizing county government. My fellow commissioners have expressed concern over a couple short-term positions in Mr. Rudimetkin's work history. I believe his detailed description of those moves would satisfy any reasonable person. It is troubling, however, that Mr. Gonzalez has just as many short-term employments in his background as Mr. Rudimetkin, but somehow my fellow commissioners have not felt the need or expressed any concern whatsoever about those, nor have they investigated them. I believe my fellow commissioners' plan to overcome Mr. Gonzalez's lack of experience, and this is my assessment of what I think is intended, is to retain our current part-time interim county administrator, Mr. Davidson, another affable public servant, to train Mr. Gonzalez. Mr. Davidson has great experience as a county treasurer and a term as our state treasurer. He has less than 180 days' experience as a county administrator. There are differences between those positions. Under their plan, Mr. Davidson would not only be training Mr. Gonzalez on the basics of county government, but would also simultaneously retain oversight of the county's major multi-million-dollar projects, including the Juvenile Justice Center renovations, the Bi-County Recovery Center, mental health and substance use disorders, and potentially a Haplo Center facility, which he has help from Ms. Jones. And he will do all this working part-time, which is a requirement so long as he continues to draw his well-earned pension checks from the Washington Public Employees Retirement System. This plan simply strains credulity and common sense. It is and could be described as a vexatious attempt to piecemeal together a way to hire Mr. Gonzalez, which begs the question of why we would pass up the exceptionally well-qualified applicant who is also in the running for this position. It is an important question. The board sought out the input of our county key staff and elected officials, openly declaring the immense importance of the views of the broader county team. Based on my discussion with team members and notes that I've taken throughout various meetings, but especially conversations, the majority of the feedback has been to either hire Mr. Rudimetkin or go back out for additional candidates using a professional search firm. My fellow commissioners twice tried to fire former County Administrator Keith Johnson, alleging that he did not have administrative skills and experience to manage county operations, apparently forgetting that Johnson served as the Director of Administrative Services for the state of Idaho, as well as the elected comptroller or treasurer for Idaho, was also a CPA and an attorney to boot. If Keith Johnson's government experience was insufficient, what does that say about Mr. Gonzalez's qualifications, which do not include a single day of city or county level executive experience? What my fellow commissioners are advocating requires a torturous, strained logic to justify hiring a candidate who does not meet even the absolute minimum criteria approved by this board and publicly advertised over an exceptionally well-qualified candidate who can handle this position from day one without the aid or, need I say, the additional taxpayer expense of an additional part-time administrator. Candidly, the only credential I see in this matter that Mr. Gonzalez has that Mr. Rudimetkin does not is recent active established participation in the Franklin County Republican Party, an organization that I've led myself in the past. One hopes that hiring for this position, which demands a politically neutral professional, is not being influenced by partisan politics. If the majority of this board feels they cannot support the exceptionally well-qualified applicant, Mr. Rudimetkin, at least respect the voices of our elected officials and key staff by hiring an independent professional search firm, just as the city of Pasco has done to hire their city manager. If the board is insistent on hiring someone local, then let's promote our present assistant to the county administrator. I think she has demonstrated an exceptional work ethic and a strong knowledge of county programs and needs. She clearly has more executive county experience than your favored candidate. It begs the question of why she's being disadvantaged. If she's not the candidate, fine. Let's go out and advertise the criteria that you intend to use and see how many applicants we get out of our own 360,000 person local commuting area. I think it's clear that there are numerous shortcomings between our stated criteria and the credentials of a fine gentleman, Mr. Gonzalez. And I'll just lastly note that I have been the subject of some criticism for my academic credentials in the world of communications. I would note that your favorite candidate, Mr. Gonzalez, has a BA in communications. Mr. Rudimetkin has a Bachelor of Science in Business Management and is an ICMA certified manager. Thank you.
Commissioner Mullen, you have anything to add?
So I've been pretty patient, listening and taking into consideration everything that you did say. I don't appreciate the fact that you're putting words in my mouth that maybe possibly came out of executive session. Executive session is totally private. You cannot discuss outside of executive session what any of the other commissioners have stated. And I believe there's been a violation of that in your little speech there. You're putting words in our mouth, and you're, by assumption, you're making comparisons to Keith Johnson. Keith Johnson, most people don't realize, I met with him at my house for over 2 hours discussing the issues in Franklin County that were happening and were not being addressed. After 2 weeks, with absolutely no change from Mr. Johnson, which is what led to our decision. Not his ability or his past experiences, just the simple fact that he did not communicate with everybody in the courthouse, including myself. I made every attempt to justify that and come to a conclusion with him in my house for the 2 hours that we met, and then when nothing changed, well, I'm sorry, it's hard to make decisions in this county when you're not given adequate information that was not being shared to everyone, only to one individual. So within regards to Mr. Gonzalez, I have the utmost confidence in his abilities. He's shown to be a true leader in the community. He works well with other people, and those are issues that we have in this county that are not being addressed. And I believe with his ability, he would be a major asset to Franklin County in resolving those issues. What it boils down to, I guess, in one way, is I believe that Mr. Gonzalez is a perfect fit for Franklin County. Thank you.
So, Ms. Chair, since those comments were directed at me, I'd like a moment to respond, and I will just simply say that, Mr. Mullen, you're on video in an open public meeting sitting there in which you cited the reason for Mr. Johnson's need to depart was that he, paraphrasing, failed to train you to be a county commissioner.
No, he didn't.
It's on video.
Okay.
I've already researched it. Go back and look. As for your reference to executive session, I was careful to say in my remarks that I believe, or I have reason to believe, that my fellow commissioners have a plan to do this. That comes from multiple sources, not just from discussions that you might consider to be privileged. I agree with you on the executive session point, but you would have to understand that that observation is from more than one time and place.
Where? I don't discuss things out of executive session with anybody.
I don't discuss executive session out of executive session.
Well,
I guess that wasn't a discussion. It was a statement by you, Commissioner Peck.
It was a statement of my perception of
You're-
what I believe is being proposed.
You're accurate in the fact that you did not discuss it with anybody, but it was a statement by you in an open meeting.
The entire statement was my opinion, Mr. Chair, let's be clear.
Yeah, well written too. Aren't you glad we delayed this till today so you could have prepared that?
Yeah, I appreciate the time.
You betcha. Thank you. Well, anyway, my thoughts are I think Mr. Gonzalez would be an incredible opportunity for Franklin County to groom an administrator up under Mr. Davidson's tutelage to be somebody that might turn out to be one of the best administrators of the state of Washington. And I am certainly happy to give somebody the opportunity when we look for qualified people and you're bringing them from out of the area, they have no idea what this area is about. And I would much prefer to have somebody that knows the area, in particular the city of Pasco, and has no reason to move. He has roots in this area. He's going to stay in this area. And I think it's a great opportunity not only for Mr. Gonzalez, but for Franklin County. But this is just to offer him the opportunity. It's not a for sure deal yet. We've got a lot of work to do here before it comes to be of fruition. So with that, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Nay?
Okay. So with that, we are going to give Mr. Gonzalez a call and have a meeting with him. And I'm sure it'll be Mr. Davidson, myself, and the HR director to offer him the terms and see if he'd be willing in agreement. So with that, if there's no other business for the good of the county, this meeting is adjourned.